Season finales are strange things. They're not really about endings. They're about stopping long enough to look back, not to count episodes, not to track numbers, but to ask a much more uncomfortable question. What changed because we stay in this conversation? Season 4 was never designed to be flashy. It wasn't meant to chase trends or algorithms. This season was built deliberately slower, deeper, and more reflective than anything before. Because language learning itself is slow, layered, and deeply, deeply personal, human. And if there's one idea that quietly connected every episode this season, it's this: progress in language doesn't happen when we rush. It happens when we pay attention. And this is how we start our season finale. As I always say, sit down comfortably, get yourself a coffee, and let's get started.
Woo! Let's go!
From the very beginning of the season, we challenge comfortable assumptions. We question what we're told to value in language classrooms. And more importantly, why we value those things in the first place. Pronunciation, fluency, accuracy, silence mistakes, identity. None of these are technical topics. They're emotional ones, disguised as pedagogy. When we talked about pronunciation, we didn't talk about fixing accents. We talked about intelligibility, power, and belonging. We explore how pronunciation is often used as a gatekeeping tool rather than a communication tool, and how learners internalize shame long before they internalize sounds. What emerged wasn't a method, it was a mindset shift. Pronunciation teaching is not about erasing who someone is, but about helping them be heard without fear. Then, we slowed things down even more and sat with silence. The silent period, a topic that classrooms often fear. Silence makes teachers uncomfortable. It feels unproductive. But, as a matter of fact, silence, we learned, is not absence. It is processing. It's language recognizing itself internally before it emerges. When we rush learners out of silence, we don't speed them up. We destabilize them. Season 4 reminded us that not all learning is visible, and not all progress makes noise. And the season unfolded. We confronted one of the most misunderstood tensions in language education: fluency versus accuracy. And instead of choosing sides, we asked a better question: when does each one matter, and for whom? We explored how fluency without control creates fragility, and how accuracy without freedom creates paralysis. The real skill of teaching, as this season revealed, is knowing when to let language flow and when to help it settle. From here, we moved into input, massive input, comprehensible input, input flooding, and we asked an uncomfortable question: can listening alone make you fluent? The answer wasn't yes or no. It was more honest than that. Input is powerful, but only when the learner is engaged, emotionally safe, and cognitively ready to connect from the meaning. Passive exposure doesn't create language. Active noticing does. So, Season 4 also asks us to rethink what happens inside real classrooms. Task-based learning wasn't presented as a methodology checklist, but as a philosophical shift from teaching language as content to using language as action. When learners do things with language, they stop performing for teachers and start performing for meaning. That's where confidence grows. Not from correction, but from purpose. And one of the most important turns this season 2 was into translanguaging. Not as a trend, not as a buzzword, but as recognition. Learners do not think in neat linguistic boxes, and classrooms shouldn't pretend they do. Translanguaging doesn't weaken language learning, it strengthens identity. It tells learners your full linguistic self is welcome here. And this episode is brought to you by FrameFlow. Great content deserves great visuals. FrameFlow is a creative studio in Nanning, China, specializing in cinematic quality video production, video editing, and graphic design for personal brands and influencers. If you want your content to look as professional as it sounds, book your first project and reach out directly via WeChat or WhatsApp. More info at frameflowcn.com. We also spend time where many teachers hesitate to go: slang, idioms, and formal speech. These are the living edges of language, the parts that textbooks sanitize. Teaching them responsibly means teaching context, power, and consequence, not just vocabulary. Season 4 reminded us that language isn't just about correctness, it's about belonging in real conversations. And then came the deeper layers: neuroscience, bilingual brains, motivation, identity. We explored what research tells us about how languages live in the brain, and what classrooms often ignore about how languages live in the heart. Motivation isn't a trait, it's a relationship. Identity isn't a side effect of learning a language, it's reshaped by it. Every new language subtly changes how we see ourselves. And Season 4 refused to treat that as incidental. What made this season different wasn't just the topics, it was the tone. This season didn't shout, it didn't promise shortcuts, it didn't sell miracles. Instead, it respected the intelligence of teachers and learners alike. It trusted that depth matters more than speed, and understanding matters more than performance. If Season 4 had one quiet message running underneath everything, it was this: language education doesn't need more pressure. It needs more patience. More patience with learners, with ourselves, with the process. This season asks teachers to slow down, not because we're behind, but because we've been running in the wrong direction. It asks us to replace urgency with intention and compliance with curiosity. It reminded us that good teaching is not loud, and real learning is not always measurable on demand. So as we close Season 4, this isn't a goodbye, it's a pause, a breath, a moment to carry these ideas back into classrooms. Lesson plans, feedback sessions, and quiet moments of doubt. Because that's where they matter. If something from this season stayed with you, challenged you, or made you uncomfortable, that's not a problem. That's growth. Language learning has never been about comfort. It's about courage. Courage to sound imperfect, to think differently, and to keep going anyway. And as we move forward into new conversations, new seasons, and new questions, let's carry this one truth with us. Language doesn't grow when we rush it. It grows when we listen deeply, patiently, and humanly. And I would like to give a huge thanks here to each one of my guests during this season. Throughout the whole seasons, the 4 seasons right now. Thank you very much for being part of this project. This project is something that I really keep close to my heart. Thanks a lot for sharing all your ideas, your comments, that energy that you all have. I'm really happy to interview and to talk with all of you wonderful teachers. Very professional, you all are. So, this new season, wait for it, because it's coming and it's loaded. It's coming and it's a lot what we have. We will keep working. Stay tuned. And as I always say, until next time, keep questioning, keep reflecting, and keep teaching with intention.